Here's a musical skill that we need to know if we're going to sing the music from the civil rights era. Remember when we talked about 4/4 time signature, and we learned that in 4/4 time signature, the music is divided into measures, and each measure has 4 counts in it. And so you can count this all the way through the song. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it fits the song. It fits the meter. We also learned that the first beat of each measure is the strong beat, so you clap on beat 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the way through the song, and it fits the meter. But in music of the civil rights era, it was traditional to clap on beats 2 and 4. It's a lot cooler that way and a lot more fun. Let me show you what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this next song, you'll see us clap and sing in that way, and it makes it sound and feel a lot more fun. We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Truth shall make us free. Truth shall make us free. Truth shall make us free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
So you get it, right? In a call and response song, someone sings a line, and then everybody sings it back, or someone sings a line and everybody sings something different back, the same thing every time. With some of these songs, people would make up lines to sing that applied to the things that they were doing right then. It helped them stay together, be strong, and not be afraid in these tough situations.
And on Route 80,
There was actually a group of people who traveled on buses across the southern United States during the Civil Rights Movement starting in 1961. They would travel to cities that had laws that kept black people and white people apart. Those laws were called segregation laws or Jim Crow laws. When the Freedom Riders, that's what they were called, would come to a town, they would face resistance. They'd arrive on their bus and get out and have a march or a protest, and sometimes they were arrested. Sometimes they were attacked. One time their bus was burned. But they kept on traveling and protesting and marching, and they never gave up, and they helped change things. You can find a cool short video about the Freedom Riders on the Targets. One of the most important events that happened during the Civil Rights Movement happened in August of 1963. That was the day of the March on Washington. People from all over the country traveled to Washington, D.C. to protest segregation and support new laws that they hoped Congress would pass to end unjust Jim Crow laws. It was officially called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and this historic gathering took place on August 28, 1963. 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and more than 3,000 members of the press covered the event, so there are lots of great videos and pictures. There's a great old video about the March on the Targets, so go check that out too. You can see all the singers and hear the songs that were sung during this time. Joan Baez, Peter, Paul and Mary, Mahalia Jackson, the Freedom Singers, Odetta, Bob Dylan, and Miriam Anderson. Those are names that Mr. Roderick knows because they're famous singers and performers from my generation and before. The March on Washington included Martin Luther King's famous speech, "I Have a Dream," and that's something that you all have studied in your classes, especially during Martin Luther King's birthday week. So here's another song. Dr. Martin Luther King, during his "I Have a Dream" speech in the March on Washington in 1963, talked about this song at the very end of his speech. He said, free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last." And this is the song he was thinking about. This is a song that is a church song, and we remember that Dr. King was a church pastor. So that's why he would like a song like this. But it's also a great call and response song. And you'll hear it when we sing this. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. On my knees when the light passed by, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Thought my soul would rise and fly, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. One of these mornings, bright and fair, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Gonna meet King Jesus in the air, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Do you notice how my daughter is tapping on beats 2 and 4? Let's count with her. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. See how that works? It sounds really cool with this music. And now do it with us when we sing the last refrain of the song. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Well, now it's your turn. I'd like you to write a verse for We Shall Overcome. Remember that song? We just sang it. We shall overcome. Now in that song, there's a call part and a response part. The response part is the same every single time you sing it, and the call part is the part that changes. The call part is the part that one person would sing, and then everybody else would sing back the whole rest of the verse. So you have to write a call part for a verse of We Shall Overcome. Now, how many words do you need to write a new verse for We Shall Overcome? Think about it. How many syllables do you need? All you need to do is write those down and email it to me. My email address is on the targets. And I will sing some of them next week on next week's targets. You should make this verse to We Shall Overcome about something that you're thinking about right now. You guys are all going through something too, just like the people who went through the civil rights movement went through some things, and they wrote verses that applied to their situation. You could write a verse that applies to your situation right now. How are you feeling when you can't go to school? Do you like being home? Do you hate being home all the time? Do you miss going outside and playing with friends? Do you miss seeing all the people at school, even the teachers? I'll tell you, we really miss you guys. So, write a verse to We Shall Overcome. All you need to do is type it into an email and send it to me. And if it works, I'll sing it next week. All right, kids, have a great week. Do your homework. Don't drive your parents crazy. Do a chore around the house, and I'll see you next week.